Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Sundari Broadcast Systems. It is me, your host, Charlie, along with Dom. There we
Dang, I did
go.
it. I did it too, and I know how this works now. Hello.
Today we got a few interesting topics to talk about today. But one of the big topics that we're going to talk about, I found it while scrolling through Facebook the other day. So we're just going to talk about it, break it down a little bit, and honestly, we would love to hear your opinions in the comments or in our Discord. For those that don't know, our Discord is always linked in the description of the video. Join us, come chat with us, give us topics to talk about during our shows. We'd love to hear from you.
Exactly. Yeah.
But first, for those who haven't noticed yet, or for everyone, if y'all haven't noticed yet, if you look at our icon, it has changed. Our logo has changed. And I personally just want to give a shout out to the people over at Culture Slate for helping us get this together.
Woo.
So big thank you to those guys. But we've got some things in the works with a bunch of other Star Wars creators, but those are down on the hush hush right now. That kind of top secret on what we're working on. But as things develop and plans come to fruition, just expect more and more great things from us here at Sundari. I know last show I kind of fumbled in the middle of things, but if you are of age, not Shane's loophole bullshit.
We
If
can
you
all
are
agree that we do not follow Shane's loophole. It
if you
was
are 21 or older in the United States, drop in the comments what you're drinking tonight. Like we're just trying to get you engaged a little bit, have a little bit of conversation points with you guys. So if you are an adult of drinking age, drop in the comments what you're drinking tonight. But on with the show. The show must go on. Here we
I
go.
enjoy a good can of liquid death, which is water. Have you seen those cans?
Yes, I have.
They're the best.
But today's topic, we are talking the Galactic Civil War, and what we're talking about is the article I found that made me kind of want to talk about this today is, was the Rebel Alliance freedom fighters or terrorists? And for those that don't personally know me, I did serve 4 years in the United States Marine Corps as a infantry machine gunner. So I can bring a different kind of point of view to things than, per se, Dom can. Finally, I'm a hand motion sound, right?
Yeah.
But so we're going to be taking a look at this in universe and out of universe for a little bit. And before we break it down, for those watching live with us now or watching later on just on YouTube, let us know in the comments what you think they are and like your opinion, because everybody has an opinion and you're more than welcome to it. So we want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think the rebels were freedom fighters, or do you think they were terrorists, or do you think they were something else? Let us know.
We'd love to hear what you think.
So, Dom,
Yes.
what do you think? What do you think? Just off the top of your head, without diving deep into the lore, what do you think they are?
Freedom fighters.
Freedom fighters. Do you care to elaborate?
The way I see it is that they're freedom fighters because they're stepping up against a corrupt government body. If it's against their if it's all against their moral principles, as well as indirectly moral. I said that twice, but
It's fun.
But just not being fair to. No, they're standing up to a hypocritical and corrupt government, doing what they can so they won't suffer much longer. Even if it has, and to their eyes, it's the only way to get that goal is, even if it if it has to take the step into dangerous territory. and taking dangerous measures.
Hmm. So for me, this is like me as just a fan when I was a kid watching this stuff growing up. I also thought they were freedom fighters, but as I grew up, as I learned how the world worked and all of that, it developed into they are both. And let me break that down a little bit more. So it does go along with what Dom was saying, where they see something wrong, if it and they are trying to fight against what is wrong in the, I'll say world, but in the galaxy, and they want to bring about peace and justice and all the things that a good democracy are built on.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at it from the other side of the coin. Not everybody in the galaxy supported the rebels. Not everybody in the galaxy supported the Empire. It's just like every war. There's people that agree and people that disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But the rebels weren't, for the longest time, were not a organized military. They would carry out hit and run attacks on Imperial targets all across the galaxy. But to the average citizen that had no really stake in the war, it was just another war. The galaxy had been at war had been at peace for about 20 years, and then but prior to that there was a war, and before that another war. It just seemed a never-ending cycle of conflict in the galaxy. So it was just another thing. But then the city they live in, the city they work in, gets attacked because there's an Imperial target in it. Buildings get blown up, people get hurt. That makes them afraid. And who are they afraid of now?
The rebellion.
The rebellion. And that at its core is honestly terrorism. Doesn't matter how right or how just your cause is. If you make people afraid of you through your actions against whatever you're fighting, it's terrorism. In a simple sense. And we're gonna get more into this. Hopefully, I can break it down a little bit better than just that kind of blanket thing. But one thing that we get hints of, like how the Rebel Alliance feels even before the Rebel Alliance exists, way back in the Clone Wars. There was an episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars where Ahsoka Tano went to Mandalore, our favorite planet, to teach the young children of Mandalore, just about the galaxy and like what it is to be a galactic citizen. And one of the things that she states is it is the duty of every citizen to hold the leaders accountable and keep them honest. The actual quote is it's every citizen's duty to challenge the leaders to keep them honest. And so in the early days of the rebellion, before it was actually a fight, it was just some senators that had the balls to try and stand up to the Empire to keep them honest and make sure that they treated every citizen with respect and dignity. Obviously, we know that didn't work. But we were already seeing hints of like how they felt before they even existed, just off the mindset of a few people and what they got taught as children.
Mm-hmm.
Dom, do you have anything you want to?
It was very
continue on with.
It's very interesting on the focus of perspective. Like how Charlie said, it's these young Mandalore children were thought they had the perspective of if they were their, like you said, their duty to keep their leaders accountable, to keep them honest. To them, they're doing what's right, but to others, they see it as unlawful, or it's dangerous. They can get hurt. or hurt or worse, killed.
So I'm gonna circle back, try and break down this whole freedom fighter versus terrorism thing. Sorry about that. Again, it's all a matter of perspective. Every war is a matter of perspective. It doesn't matter how big, how small, who's involved. So, as everybody knows, recently it was the 21st anniversary of 9/11. To the people that committed 9/11, to them, they were fighting a righteous war against us. But they were not a formulated military. They're a band of rebels. And they used whatever means they had to attack their enemy. And in doing so, our formulated military responded. But what did it do to the citizens of the United States? It struck terror into us. It made us afraid. It made us sad. It made some people not want to fight. But terrorism is a double-sided blade because also it rallied an entire generation to want to bring justice for what happened. Now, it's not my point to say here nor there of who was right and who was wrong in that, because it doesn't matter if I bring in 100% facts, people are going to argue that, so I'm not here to debate that at all. I'm here to debate Star Wars. That's what this is about. Mm-hmm. But United States responds. United States and its allies respond to the attacks. And now to the people of Afghanistan and Iraq, we are an invading army. Some of them wanted us there because they didn't like the people in charge. All right, cool. That works. Made our job a little bit easier. But then after the war kind of settled down and we turned into a peacekeeping force, basically how the empire was for about 19 years. They were a peacekeeping force. Attack, attack, attack. There'd be small little terrorist attacks everywhere. And then we'd respond in whatever means necessary to respond to that appropriate threat. But then, oh hey, we found the dude that made all the bombs that just went off. All right, cool. Drone strike. It's in the middle of a populated city, and all of a sudden a building just explodes out of nowhere. Everybody knows who did it, so who are they scared of now? Us. Who are the people that are doing right? The other guys. It's all a matter of perspective. So when we flip it back to Star Wars, you had people all over the galaxy supported the Rebel Alliance because they did not like the Empire. And that's good, that's dandy, that's great. But they would always a lot of them would turn a blind eye to the methods until the methods became too extreme. And that would flip them on the hearsay. They would, I think hearsay is the right word, whatever. It would flip the coin. And they'd be like, maybe the Empire is not so bad because they can offer us they can offer us a little bit more security. Because they'd see how the troopers respond and all of that. But then same thing would happen. The Empire would track down a rebel leader or something, and boom, now everybody's scared of the Empire. Not everybody, but people are afraid of the Empire, so then they turn to the rebels. Mm-hmm. So it all comes back to perspective. How are you viewing things? How are the methods you are using to employ your fight against tyranny or for justice or just for peace? How are they kind of skewing people's view towards you? Because I could stand up and proclaim to be a freedom fighter, fighting for the glory of the old republic. But then I do some barbarous shit and I look like a barbarian. I just said I represent the republic. Who's going to want to follow me if I'm looking like an animal? fighting like an animal. Not
No
a lot of
one.
people.
I don't
Not
know
a
why
lot
I
of
just got
people.
really close to the mic.
And we even see this. Like this is brought into the limelight in Rogue One. Because the Greater Rebel Alliance had, by that point, had formulated. They were the alliance to restore the Republic. But then you had Saw Gerrera and his partisans. They were viewed as extremists because they would do whatever was necessary to fight, to bring death and destruction against the Empire. They didn't care what the people thought of them. They just wanted to fight the Empire. But they thought what they was doing was right. But the rest of the Rebel Alliance didn't see it that way. They were extremists. They wanted nothing to do with them. I know this has kind of been a heavy topic.
It is.
Bringing in real world things, but
It's also important.
That's the thing about Star Wars. That's the thing I love about Star Wars. Is it is, for lack of a better analogy, it's like an onion. It has layers, and to get to like the core of it, you have to peel away those layers and kind of dig down deep into it. And it may skew your view of Star Wars because, like, just on the surface level, it's good versus evil. But then you break it down, and good guys aren't looking so good sometimes. Bad guys are looking a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Saw Gerrera is a great representation, great example, I mean, for perspective. And
I got an even better one with a major character in Star Wars too. Luke Skywalker.
Oh.
You have a farm boy from Tatooine. Hangs out for a few days with an old space wizard to go rescue a princess. And then he is. This is me oversimplifying things. He's indoctrinated into the fight against the Empire, and then kills millions of people a few days later. Was he really doing the right thing, or was he doing the wrong thing? Because the Death Star didn't just have Imperials on it; it had civilian contractors. It had families. I'm pretty sure it had families. I think some of them, there were some families on board. It had prisoners of war. It had slaves. It had a ton of people on there. And just
gone.
So who was doing the right thing there? Obviously, we, from the greater perspective, we know that it was a necessity that the Death Star gets destroyed. But look at the greater galaxy now. They see this one, like they find out that this one person managed to destroy this massive space station. It's not looking too good.
Now, we're not like shading the light away from what a Death Star did to. How many planets did it actually destroy? Actually,
so complete planets, it destroyed only Alderaan, but then it decimated the city of Jeddah, and then the Imperial Archive base on Scarif.
But yeah.
Let's actually break down the attack on the Imperial Archives on Scarif. So that was a double-edged sword, what Tarkin did there, because it was. So we're going to go back to that terrorism line right here. On both sides, Imperial and Rebels, it was terrorism. That one attack, it was a retaliatory attack because to the Empire, they couldn't allow the secrets that were in the archives to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of, we need to stop them no matter the cost, but we also have this super weapon. Let's flex our muscles and show them what we're capable of. But then, what do you think? What about the the guys in the TIE fighters that are flying around in space, and they all of a sudden they just see an Imperial position just get decimated by another Imperial weapon. Like they might have known people like that were stationed there, because like one thing that this is my military experience. This is a lot of veterans' military experience is no matter how big your military is, like the U.S. military has millions of people in it. It's a small military. Like
Yep.
you could not see somebody for years, and then all of a sudden you run into them again, and it's just like you never lost touch. It's so even on the scale of the empire, billions of people, trillions even maybe. They probably knew people on some of these locations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was. It's that type of. I don't. There's a lot you can talk about this, and I keep thinking back to what you say about like about a whole generation uniting because of one cause. One thing I can also think of that is the actually when the empire starts. It's when the before the empire you had the republic and the separatist alliance.
Mm-hmm.
You have the all of a sudden the empire, the republic falls, turns into the empire. You still have republic senators per se. This is like republic. Sorry, I was wrong quotations there. Sorry. What I'm trying to say is that people of the republic, as well as separatists, united as a whole to stand up against the empire. And we've mentioned this before. That Cassian Andor, he's a separatist.
Now, I was about to go into that as soon as you finished your point, that this will actually roll really well into Andor, because it's probably about the middle age of the building up to the Galactic Civil War. So we'll see a lot of like the down and dirty that happens, because even in the trailer he said spies, saboteurs, assassins. It may not be as dark as I'd like to see a dark and gritty Star Wars, but it's gonna give us it's gonna show us the darker side of the rebellion, but also a darker side to the Empire, but also a lighter side to the Empire, more than likely. Lighter side to the rebellion. It's probably gonna play really well on those that issue of perspective.
It's brother against brother, whether it's in the whether it's within the militaries or within as citizens or within as galactic officials.
Because like think about it this way: the Republic, it collapsed and the Empire took its place, and with the Empire, it ushered in a new age of wealth and prosperity to the galaxy. So to everybody, life is good. Like we have more money than we did when we were the Republic. We don't have to worry about war. Things are on the up and up. Jobs are coming in left, right, and sideways. Everything's looking better. We even see this with the Imperials that we see in the Andor trailer. They're fat and happy.
So fat and satisfied.
Right there. But then you look at some of the other citizens of the Empire. You see Cassian Andor, you see the people of his planet, they see that Star Destroyer and they're terrified.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at this point, it's like if we and based on the trailer, when we still see the clone, like the clone, it's like Legion just marching. When the clones were clone troopers were phasing out into TK troopers and stormtroopers, it started from the core worlds out, and whatever his and that I think I can't remember if we said it on the podcast or just a personal conversation with just the group. We were like guessing that it would have taken years to fully like fully rinse out every clone and replace it with place them with stormtroopers in the galaxy of whatever territory they could have.
Yeah, because like we see a hint of it in the Bad Batch. Like them starting to phase out clones to TK troopers. But we get no real scale of time, like passage of time. How long has passed since the fall of the Republic? Could be a week, could be months. We don't know.
We rarely get a timestamp on when it is, when stuff is in Star Wars.
But speaking from a realistic standpoint, even if you have, we'll say 200,000 volunteers to replace the 200,000 clones that first came into service, you can't just copy and paste them in. You now have 200,000 people. You have to spend probably around a year completely training up to all be on the same page. It doesn't matter if they had prior experience due to being in a planetary defense force or not. They're on a different page than Dom from Alderaan is on a different page than Luke from Bespin. They're not, their tactics won't work the same. So you have to spend that time teaching them how to work on the same page. Oh, and then you throw in them in the fact that in that class they might have people that never held a blaster in their life, never served in any military capacity. So now you gotta, the way every other military does it, you gotta break them down to nothing. You have to teach them how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to sleep, how to shoot, how to dress themselves, all this other stuff. But you can't isolate the fact that, hey, Joe Schmo over here in 3rd Platoon, 1st Squad served the entirety of the Clone Wars with Planetary Defense Force of Skeko Minor. Like, you can't really do that because then you're having to put him in the same position as trainee 11731 or whatever his operating number is, because they all have to be on the exact same page. Like, looking at a real world perspective, I have about another year and a half left on my inactive contract with the United States Marine Corps. If I decide, hey, I'm going to go join the Army, because I can do that. I am a citizen now. I'm a civilian. I'm a veteran. I could go join the Army. And because I'm within this time frame of my contract, I would not have to return to basic training and learn all this stuff again. But like, let's say I waited another 4 years, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to join the Army. I would have to go to basic training and go through basic training. Just as, like, they may know, like, I could demonstrate that I know everything, but just so everybody's on the same page, trainee 2 and trainee 6 are on the same page, they would put me in there also as just a refresher to make sure I'm up to date on everything, because things can change. And that was the biggest thing when the Empire came in power, is so much changed.
A lot.
So it would take to effectively push out, because we also don't know how many training facilities there were. There could have been 10, that just trained millions of troopers at once, or there could have been hundreds that trained a few thousand at once. It would still take a few years to completely phase out the clone troopers. And even then, there'd still be some in service because the Empire gave them the option. Like, you can retire or you can stay in. And depending on those clone trooper specialty, they could become instructors or they could just stay as a regular foot soldier. It just depended. It was completely varied.
Gosh, that's putting that into like I forgot that clones did become teachers, instructors.
Mm-hmm. Most just became stormtroopers.
You think like that also gives us a perspective of bonds with like telling war stories between your instructor of the Clone Wars to the Empire.
Mm-hmm. And see, one thing that this is varying off from our primary topic, but one thing that happened is as clones became stormtroopers or instructors, they looked down upon the volunteers because the clones had years of training and then years of combat experience under their belts, and now they're going to have to take in a few months take someone who's never held a blaster in their life and teach them how to be as effective, if not more effective, than a clone trooper who was from birth bred for war.
Mm-hmm.
It put a sour taste in their mouth, and the fact that Joe Schmo over there is replacing his brother who died yesterday because there was a separatist holdout that wasn't a droid army, and they had to go and try and stomp it out. It's just they were bitter and resentment towards these volunteers because these volunteers were taking their jobs away from them, their lives away from them.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about another topic real quick, but before that, I really need to go to the bathroom right now. It just came on me. I will be right back.
All by myself. Don't at me on my singing. I know I can't sing. This is awkward, but we're gonna roll with it. I don't know what topic he wants to talk about, so I'm just kind of waiting. Now you get to see just the chaos of what we do when we don't know what to talk about and we're all alone. My cats aren't in the office, so I can't show you guys my cats. I honestly don't know what to talk about because I don't want to make this the entirety of this podcast just like serious and dark and depressing and like it's been a heavy podcast so far. So like episodes of today. So like I want to lighten it up, but I don't know what to say. See if I can find some Star Wars jokes to tell you guys. Oh no, now there's two people in here. I'm just sitting here by myself with two people watching me. Hello, two people. I don't know who you are, but now it's back to one. So I looked up some cheesy Star Wars jokes to tell you guys until Dom gets back. What's the internal temperature of a tauntaun? Lukewarm. Why did episodes 4, 5, and 6 come out before 1, 2, and 3? Because in charge of directing Yoda was. I know, Garrett. I'm
Hi,
sorry.
I apologize.
You saved me from just the awkward, cheesy Star Wars jokes I was getting to.
Yeah. So when you speaking of, I want to do a I want to show comparison between the separatists, the which separatists. Hold on. What am I trying to say? Separatist military force, the Empire's military force, and the First Order's military force are just but just any in general, which is what I'm. You look at the separatists. Well, they're mostly made up of droids. They're battle droids, literally scraps of metal programmed for battle.
Dom, take a minute and catch your breath. You're there. Just breathe. Just take a minute. Take a deep breath so you can talk a little bit more clearly.
Okay. So you have the separatists, which are battle droids, robots programmed for war. You have, but then when you go to we move to the Imperials. It's just regular people. It's just people enlisting were they drafts? I don't think they were draft.
There was no need for a draft.
There was no need.
It was volunteer base.
So you have that with people, with just literally as our world. If you want to join the military, you can. If you're interested, you sign yourself up. If you get, but then we move to the First Order. They are the troopers are, from what we know, the troopers are taken from their parents. They don't know their parents, and quoting General Hux, they're programmed from birth.
Mm-hmm.
And we also see that they are organic beings, but programmed like droids into the battle into following the First Order. Mm-hmm. We also see that in any case of any malfunction in Resistance, they mention on troopers getting memory wiped.
Yeah. So that's what the when Finn was slated to go to why am I drawing a blank on her name?
No. From Rise of Skywalker. I know who exactly.
No,
Wait.
Phasma. There we go. Phasma. She that's the hardest I've ever struggled on a name before when it comes to Star Wars. But he was sent to her unit to be reconditioned. So he was more likely going to get his mind wiped and retaught everything to be another indoctrinated organic droid, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that didn't happen, and we got the sequels here. The sequels.
Mm-hmm.
But you can even see like the difference in like battle tactics based off of just like the type of military that they used. Separatist Alliance, obviously, majority of it was battle droids. There were organic beings in their military, because it was like local planetary defense forces that decided to, hey, we're gonna fight against the Republic. Cool. But their droid, like the droid armies, would just parade formation, march towards the enemy. And that's a tactical psychological warfare. You have a faceless enemy just coming at you nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
That'll mess you up.
Yep.
But then the Empire kind of incorporated that as well. Their tactics were a lot more based in organics because obviously majority of their fighting force was organic beings. So there's a lot more like creative thinking, tactics, and fluidity and movement. But they kept with the faceless enemy just coming at you. The only distinctions on who you were shooting at was maybe Stormtrooper 3,476 had a pauldron with an orange marking on it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look to your left, and there's another one over there. They're still faceless. There's just little distinctions that maybe made them an easier target because maybe that pauldron means that they're an officer. Let me take him out. But then you look at the face. You look at the eyes. You don't see a person under that. You just see the helmets, the faceless enemy coming at you nonstop.
Whether which side you fight on. Well, it's what am I trying to say? Whether which side you fight on, there's always a force with I was not going. I don't know where I was going. I don't know where I went with that. But
I don't even know.
It's with the sorry. I didn't remember what I was going to talk about before. With the Separatists, with the droid army, they can just recycle, reprogram, and rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were backed by the banking clan. They had the facilities to keep creating droids.
Mm-hmm.
And most likely, they would take the salvaged. They would take the parts from the battlefields and probably salvage them, recycled, and rebuild.
They definitely could do that. And like this is one thing that I've seen a lot of Star Wars creators, both on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, whatever, talk about, and that is the clone army. While they were organic beings, they were in a sense just living droids, because for the longest time, while they did have personalities for a decent amount of time, they weren't able to express their personalities, especially when it came to the Kaminoans. Kaminoans had a mold, and that clone had to fit in that mold. If it didn't, like 99 was the exception. He was a clone that couldn't fulfill the normal roles of a clone. But they decided, hey, we're going to make him janitorial staff. Almost every other clone that malfunctioned, they just euthanized it. Just gone.
Not fit enough for battle.
Not fit enough to do anything in their eyes.
Not the soldier.
But then you see, like, the clones are able to express themselves a little bit more. You saw it with the way they painted their armor, the haircuts, the tattoos, all that stuff. But then as it got closer to the rise of the Empire, they did a brilliant job with the visuals in the Clone Wars, is you started to see less and less of that customization and that personality in the clones, and it was going back to just cookie cutter, faceless enemies.
I like to think that when early on in the Clone Wars, when they're mentioning that the DNA, that Jango Fett's DNA, the more they bit by bit the more bits they were taking from his DNA, it was decreasing so far to where we look at the Shinies episode, and they are said to have been developed their own personalities because of the DNA being strained so much to produce these clones. I'm going to close this door real quick.
Yeah, the straining of the DNA and just how far they had to stretch it could cause personalities to erupt because of there not being like certain attributes that were specific to Jango Fett, but at the same time they are organic beings that think and feel, and they were humans. They were just clones of humans, so they develop how any other human would. They intake stimuli, and then their personality would be a reflection of how they process that stimuli.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at Heavy. He intook the stimuli, and his answer to it was big fucking gun, big fucking explosion. He did things heavy.
Mm-hmm. It was a way to liven. I don't know what you were talking about before I came in, so I just decided to jump the gun. But I like to think that when Order 66 happens, like when it happened, it was immediate. We all know about the inhibitor chips. Once they hear the command, it's set into motion, chemicals into their brain to where they are. Focus. It's focus on this order. Focus on this order. I need to focus. Big boom. Big boom. Solve all the problems.
Okay, barbarian.
But not Clanker. God.
Wrecker.
Oh my gosh, I am having a hard time.
I think you need to rewatch Bad Batch.
I know.
But like I understand what you're talking about. How it's like immediate, like change in personalities, and we see that really well in the Bad Batch. Like I'm going back to how that beautiful transition. You go and you look at the Bad Batch. After Order 66 happens, every clone is wearing their helmets. They're not expressing themselves. Not at all.
All white.
Except for the Bad Batch. Because they are defective clones. They have mutations. So, and since their inhibitor chips didn't activate, they're still expressing themselves through their armor customizations, their personalities, all of that stuff. But every other clone is reverted to a cookie cutter, faceless enemy.
Here's a theory that I like to think about. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast, but when I think of Order 60, like after the events after Order 66, I think of what happens to the clones after Order 66. Like their brain, like they've developed these memories with their generals, their troopers, their commanders, their captains, every single one of them, every single one of their brothers and their generals, the friends they made. Order 66 happens. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Your order is this.
And see, that's one thing that I love to see. Again, talking Bad Batch here, was Hauser.
Oh,
he executed Order 66. We know this. Like, obviously, there weren't any Jedi on Ryloth, at least as far as we know. But my theory is they still needed him to act in an official capacity to be friends with the Twi'leks. So they dialed back and allowed his personality to show. So he could still take the helmet off and be that friendly face the Twi'leks knew.
Yeah, and
that left the door open for the Bad Batch to come in and kind of sow those seeds of doubts. And it eventually led to him rebelling against the Empire. It was a small scale, but he rebelled.
Bad Batch is a perfect example to why I have this theory. I see Order 66 as this chemical that affects the brain for a long period of time. depending on the clone. It's that cloud that is affects your vision of what you think is morally correct. Once that starts to and over time it starts to dissipate. The clones begin to start to have doubt to what they to in my opinion, to what I think the clones start having doubt to what they have committed, what they. Why am I having a hard time saying that? What they just follow,
The
the
order they
order
just
they
followed.
followed. That's the. My God, but
Are you sure you haven't been drinking, Mr. Underage?
I drank water.
Water, that's what they're calling it nowadays.
I mean, I drank it. I drank as I mentioned before. I drank liquid death, so it's quenching my thirst too much.
So
how's this a perfect example to what I'm?
I don't know. So I'm gonna go off like how the clones viewed Order 66 and like the time after that is while it was a flip of a switch, it wasn't their personalities didn't dissipate. In their brain, they still existed, but they had no control over their actions. So they were still one. I think it was. I can't remember if it was Geetsley or if it was Eckhart's Ladder. One of the two over on YouTube. Amazing Star Wars content creators, mind you, amazing. But they talked about how the clones still existed as individuals, still had all of their memories, all of their thoughts, everything, while their bodies carried out Order 66. So they saw what they were doing and they were helpless to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And we see in Legends, it was just an order that every clone knew, and when the time came, they had to execute it. And that's the reason why originally when Episode 3 Revenge came out, that's what the basis was it was just an order. And that's why we see the clones under Aayla Secura just continuously shooting her after she fell. They were doing that out of mercy to make sure she got a quick death. Because they had so much respect for her as a person, as a leader, that they didn't want her to suffer. But then we see this still as in the Clone Wars after Order 66 has activated, and we now know it's an inhibitor chip, is just slight hesitations. So that chemical was already affecting Rex's brain. It was hitting him hard, but he had enough of himself left to fight long enough to tell Ahsoka what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we see as soon as it's taken out, he went back to normal. And he was aware of it. He was aware of what he was doing, and he apologized to her. So that's the scary thing. That's the sad thing, is these clones knew what they were doing, but they were helpless to stop themselves.
It's like I see all the time memes of Wrecker was able to fight it off before he took him over, and like Cody just being like, "Okay, kill him." That's the thing. That's why I say it varies from clone to clone. This is why if they are human, their DNA is strange. It's not all the same DNA. If they have their own personalities, their own what they do best, how they work. While they may come from the same DNA and they consider themselves brothers, they're not the same person. They are different human. They are all human beings, whether clones or not, all with different personalities. And
see, like,
those personalities develop back.
And we as a community, we always give Cody shit for how he's just like, "Sir, you're gonna need this," and then blast him. But he was what the Empire wanted. Like when Palpatine activated that is exactly what he wanted. He wanted it to be so quick that the Jedi didn't have time to anticipate an attack. And in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which is Legends, parts of it's Legends, parts of it's not. It's in a weird gray area. It actually goes into detail about Cody's thoughts after Order 66. Like almost like immediately after he was like, I'm paraphrasing, mind you. He was like, God damn it, I wish I wouldn't have given him that. Because he just gave Obi-Wan his lightsaber back. And then he got the order to kill the Jedi. And he's like, God damn it.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's your mind, it's a type of chemical that your mind focuses on and focuses you in that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
so after the order is done, the Empire rises into power. The Jedi are gone. And over time, the clones will start to realize what the hell they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like their
And
personalities will come back into light, like
mm-hmm.
with Hauser.
Yeah,
Like that's
and
like great to
well,
say that.
I still think Hauser was like they allowed his personality to come through, so he could still be that friendly face to the Twi'leks. Um, but no, that was a common thing with the clones is after Order 66, while they were still like under this like strict control of like they are going to basically be organic droids at this point because that's basically what they were post Order 66 was organic droids. When they went to sleep, they would have nightmares of what they did. It was like the worst form of PTSD you could ever think of because it's not like something you might have been able to control. It's completely uncontrollable because you see yourself doing this stuff, but you are helpless to stop yourself. And like a lot of people don't like the clones. Like I know our own Luke, he doesn't like the clones because he says they were like bland or whatever. But it makes them tragic characters. The more you look into their psyche and how they process things,
Yeah.
it makes them some pretty tragic characters. And as a veteran myself, it makes them relatable to an extent. Obviously, I didn't have a chip implanted in my brain telling me to kill my leaders, but just like the struggles they went through and that kind of stuff, it makes them relatable.
I mean, look back to just the brief cameo that we see of that clone in Obi-Wan
Yeah.
on that planet that I can't think of right now. But just
The,
we only see him for that moment and that moment on. He
mm-hmm.
completed Order 66. It's been 10 years. Look how much he's disheveled. He was left behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's and with all the memories of what he did. That's tragic.
Yep. And so I apologize to y'all that this was kind of a heavy episode, but like I don't know, like that's just kind of where the conversation's kind of led today.
I
Um,
think it's a perfect topic because won't the next stream after this be on Andor? Because Andor will be out.
I believe so. Yeah, I do believe that Andor is our next topic.
And those were I with it being the first gritty Star Wars show.
Mm-hmm.
I think this stream is the perfect example, like is perfect, like dipping our toes into the water of this, and like a warning, like this is going. What I'm trying to say is, from this stream and for the upcoming stream before, I feel like we're gonna talk about very very dark topics when we're talking about Andor, and then just in general.
Yeah, and
I
like
think this was needed.
Star Wars isn't sunshine and rainbows. As much as like we like to put it on this pedestal, it's really not. It's pretty dark. It's pretty grimace. But it's still like my passion. I love Star Wars and I always have, always will, regardless of how dark it gets. But with that, just some closing thoughts. Next week's podcast, since we will be having Andor, we are getting the first 3 episodes released at once, so we are going to have a lot to talk about.
I completely forgot. Yeah, that's
And like I've already heard from some other Star Wars creators that like we were all hesitant because of the 3 episode premiere, but they say it was needed. Like it's kind of a slow burn, but if you were just to have 1 episode, it'd probably lose a lot of people. But since it's 3 episodes, it just kind of builds, and by the end of the 3rd episode, it's rolling pretty well. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about. And like Dom said, it's probably gonna get heavy at some points. And right now, we do apologize for that. Like if it gets a little too heavy, I do apologize. But we're here for the Star Wars, and we try and relate it sometimes to real life. And if we have those options, we'll kind of use them like we did today. But that's not our goal. Our goal is not to turn you away from Star Wars because it's dark and gritty.
Not at all.
And it's just like, again, going back to the onion analogy that I use. It's a very poor analogy, but going back to that is the more you peel away the layers of an onion, the chemical in the onion that makes you cry, the more that's going to come out. And you're still going to continue to peel the onion because you need to peel that onion for whatever reason, if it be for a recipe or you're bored or you're with your great grandpa who somehow is still alive, and he's like, hey, that's your punishment, is peeling onions. You got to get to the core of the onion, and that's what Star Wars is. Like, we see this big happy thing that we love as Star Wars, and we got to peel away those dark layers to see the light of Star Wars again, like how happy Star Wars can be again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. So basically, that analogy says, once you peel the onion of these episodes, prepare for tears. I think it's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. But with that, that is all the time we have for today. We thank you so much for watching this kind of heavy episode. But you can find us again right here next week. Same, I don't know, same time. We will keep you updated on times. But it'll be the same place, Sandara Broadcast YouTube channel. So come out, join us while we talk Andor next week. And that's all we got for you. You can find me on TikTok at CarolinaBoy232. You can find our official Instagram as Sandara Broadcast Systems on Instagram. Find us over on YouTube, obviously at Sandara Broadcast Systems. And the link to our Discord is in the description of this video.
You can also find me at dshine12 on TikTok and Instagram.
And with that, we're done for today. May the Force be with you always, and have a great weekend.
For the Republic.